Um, well, welcome to our Spring Design Week. This is our 48th year, and we do it twice a year. And usually it's just a day, but here we are, and we are very lucky that we can make these events more inclusive and get some wonderful names and very talented people. I've been looking forward to this presentation and discussion for quite some time. So thank you everybody for joining us, and I will let you guys take it away.
I did not introduce you, Gina, so why don't you tell her?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm Gina with the Seattle Design Center. If you haven't gotten that already.
And Gina was kind enough every year to really promote very well all the showrooms in the Design Center, and she does a fantastic job. So I just want to say thank you, Gina. We're going to give this another minute, let a few more people join, and then we'll get on with this presentation. So I'm just going to check and
Aaron.
they had a few more people.
I'm going to probably go through this. Thank you. Thank you.
And there's Megan. We still have a few more people joining, so we just give this one more minute and then we'll start, because everybody's time is extremely valuable. And there probably is a presentation after ours. Okay. All right. So you know what? Let's start. And as people join, they will join in. So thank you all for joining. And I'm going to say this is going to be our last virtual market. We hope to plan in the fall to do in person. We'll see how that goes. But this is hopefully our last virtual market. And for those of you that don't know me, my name is Elliot Halem. I am responsible for the showrooms up in the Pacific Northwest. And today we have the pleasure, or I have the pleasure of introducing Barry Lantz and LuAnn Nigara, who will be discussing the inspiration behind Barry's collection at Kravet called Canvas to Cloth. And as I said, this collection was created by Barry of A. Lantz Design in Carmel, Indiana. Barry has been creating luxury designs for over 40 years. Known for his depth of experience in style and talent, he tailors his award-winning services to meet his clients' requests and vision. Today, Barry's daughter, Amanda Lantz, builds on his father's rich history by collaborating closely with him on design jobs, and they specialize in residential and commercial interior design. And they do from concept to completion, and they have jobs all over the country. In 2008, which is important, Barry began painting as an additional layer to their design business. His art has been used by homeowners and designers across the country, and some of his pieces are offered through curatedkravet.com. Barry and Amanda added yet another layer to their design business in 2018, opening up their store called Lantz Collective. Their store was awarded the best home store in America by House Beautiful and made Architectural Digest top 40 home stores in America. Now you need two to tango. So we've got LuAnn with us today, who's going to be doing the interviewing. And LuAnn, if you don't know her, is a speaker, author, and podcaster, as well as the co-owner of Window Works, a window treatment and awning retailer located in Livingston, New Jersey. A talented keynote speaker, she is known for delivering energetic and dynamic presentations filled with practical business advice and proven strategies for success. Her straight-talking, down-to-earth advice for creative entrepreneurs can also be heard every week on her podcast, A Well-Designed Business. And if you have not downloaded that yet, you should. She has 4 million downloads and over 670 episodes. Just incredible. She also, as being an author, has 3 books, and I'll let LuAnn talk a little bit about that while she's interviewing Barry. But what I'd like to do is tell everybody, if you haven't, to please go on to mute Any questions you have, please put them in the chat box. LuAnn will be monitoring, I'll be monitoring, and we will get your questions answered. So to start off our conversation, LuAnn, Barry, thank you for joining us, and thank you everyone for joining our presentation today.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Elliot. And thank you, Gina, also for having us here through the Seattle Design Center. Welcome, welcome, welcome to all of you designers, some friendly faces in the audience that I recognize, and looking forward to meeting the rest of you. I am very honored to have been asked to have this conversation with Barry. I've had the privilege of meeting Barry in real life. He is an absolute genuine human person. His daughter Amanda also, very lovely people, but more importantly, you know, for our purposes here, super talented and super knowledgeable about exactly what you guys do, which is interior design. You know, 40 years of running an interior design firm, and then parlaying it into this amazing art career and now textile designing revenue stream, basically, right? I'm sure it's a creative outlet, but let's call a spade here, right? It's a revenue stream. And, you know, to partner with Kravet is one of the luxuries of this business. I've had the privilege of interviewing many of the Kravet partners through the years: Joe Cariotti, Mabley Handler, Candace Olson, who that's a Kravet Candace Olson fabric right there. You know, so many of them. And each one over and over always talks about how genuine, how valuable, how collaborative the relationship is working with Kravet. So I'm looking forward to finding out if the same is true for you, Barry. But one of the first things that I always love to ask a Kravet partner collaborator is, how did it happen? Did you ask Kravet if you could design a line of fabric, or did Kravet tap you on the shoulder? Because I know a lot of the designers that I talked with throughout the week and the year, they're always saying, how do I get one of these partnerships? How do I get involved in this? So that's always one of my first questions. So Barry, would you tell us the answer to this question?
Of course I will. And LuAnn, thank you so much. I love being here with you, and thanks to the people at Kravet for putting this together and making it happen. And hello, Seattle. Everybody does ask about that. And, you know, it's an interesting story that I have, because I have sold Kravet since I was about 20 years old. And it's always been one of my first go-tos for textiles, furniture, wall covering, rugs, and all of that. And so over the years, because it's been many years, I have built such a great sort of like a family recognition and friendship with the Kravet family and those in the showrooms. We were in the showroom in Chicago yesterday, and those people in that Chicago showroom are like family. So, you know, I was on a Kravet inspired trip with my daughter, and we were, we were in London several years ago, and I was sitting next to Steve Prada in the bus that was taking us around, and I had him at the window, okay?
You had him pinned.
I had him pinned, and this was all premeditated, okay? So, and I didn't know Steve until then, and I said, so Steve, I think that I could really design some great looking fabrics with Amanda, my daughter, his name is Amanda, with Amanda's help, that would be very saleable, because they have to be saleable. And they could be, you know, taken from or inspired by what I'm painting now on canvas. And he said, really? And I said, yeah. So when you said, did I tap Kravet on the shoulder, I punched teeth almost in the stomach. I said, you got to look at what I've got to show, you know. So we laugh about it, because I'm pretty forward with opinions and statements. So from that, Steve said, well, show us what you got, baby. So Amanda and I, with the help of our wonderful Emily Warner here in our office, went to work taking parts of the art and repeating it and laying it out and inspiring us to put it on fabric. So that's where it all came. So that's the start of that story, LuAnn. And you'll find through this, stop me if I'm talking too much, okay? But I approached Kravet in answer to your question. Yes, I approached them, and they were very kind. There were no promises. It was show us what you got. It might not be anything we'd like. And then it went from there.
Right. Well, what I love here is what I want to pull out of what you just said before I go to the next point is to the question for any designer in the audience that is thinking just what I know many of them are is how can I do this too? Is first of all, you described that you were not a stranger to Kravet. You not only were not a stranger, but you were a 40-year client of Kravet's. So now a designer in the audience might only be in business 10 years. So they don't need to be a 40-year client. But if you're in business 10 years, you shouldn't be a 6-month client, right?
Right.
And I'm talking out of turn. I did not ask Kravet these things. I'm just basic business principles that there is a relationship established. They understand. And I'm going back to also my experience with pitching Kravet to sponsor the podcast. I came from, at that point, a 30-year relationship with Kravet as well, where I'm like, hey, you know me. I've had your books for 30 years. I love your line. Here's what I love about it. This is my sales rep. This is what I love about him. So when you come cold, you're presenting as there's a history, and the history should be real, right? So that's number one.
Right.
Then number two, you have credibility as a designer. You are successful in your own right. You've got, your business and all the cred going along with that. So that's important. The other thing you mentioned is that you knew that you had to design something that was saleable, that there wasn't just like what the fancies of your imagination. So that's smart to have that in mind. And then the other thing is that you provided a hook. Right? You said, and I'm going to do it inspired based on my art, the stories and the creativity of my art. So there's the storyline hook that Kravet can start to play with and say, what is this going to mean? And there comes canvas to cloth, right? There comes that name. And then I love that you said that it was pre-planned, that you thought about your conversation with Steve. You didn't just, have the idea and spring it. And so those are great. You said all of that, and I'm just picking it apart and bullet pointing it. So great initial tips for any designer out there who's dreaming of this sort of endeavor for themselves.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now let's go to, I'm going to keep going from the backwards. Okay. So you then are with your art, and you and Amanda and Emily are like, okay, what would this be? So how does that happen? Was that really the process collaborative between the three of you, or was it initially collaborative, Barry? And then it was like, okay, thanks for all the input. Now I've actually, me, Barry, the artist, have got to get to work and really bring canvas. How did that happen?
Okay, well, I don't think we collaborated, of course, in the beginning because, being visual, as most designers are, I had things up here in my head that I wanted to express, and I could see in my head visions of repeats. I could see it, but, I'm not tech savvy at all. Amanda and Emily are very much so. So I could describe the way I wanted to translate, like the painting over here to my left behind me, and the colors into a painterly feel, into fabric, and there's a horizon line in that piece, and we pulled that horizon line out, and then the girls, I said, let's blow this up and let's repeat it and put it on cloth. And so it was very collaborative. And then Emily was so great, she would show us something and I'd say, oh, let's make it a little bit bigger. So it was very collaborative. Now, Kravet had no idea what we were going to show them. I mean, I didn't describe what I had in mind or anything. All I said to my good friend, I just said his name. My God, he'll kill me.
Steve.
On the bus, Steve. I said, I have a dream, and I've always wanted to do textiles. But he didn't say, well, what would it look like or anything like that. I didn't even give him the premise of, well, it's about the art, you know. So the dream was there, and they didn't know what we were going to show them until we arrived with a truckload of paintings, and we set up in their boardroom, in their offices in New York, the paintings and fabrics and the repeats and a vignette of florals. And I mean, it was like a set design for, you know, the presentation. Yeah.
I love it. So it's, you know what, so the distinction isn't necessarily that you brought the hook idea to Steve in the bus, but when you go to make your initial pitch, it's a full-on presentation pitch, and a designer can relate to that. It's like that full-on design presentation when you're trying to close that $1 million, you know, project, right? It's like you don't go into that meeting with like, well, I'm going to take it from my art. It's like, no, you go in with it fully blown and executed. Here's the ideas.
Right.
So I have to say, I've had the conversations. I mentioned Mabley Handler. It's a good episode if you guys haven't heard it, to listen to that episode, because they also did a full blown pitch to Kravet. They were pitching their coastal furniture line, and like beach inspired coastal, and they brought sand in, and they they really made it like a beach scene. So it's great to know that you did the same thing, right?
It's all about a visual presentation. I mean, Amanda and I even bought the right clothes in the right colors that went with the 14 paintings and the mock-ups and everything. But what we found out when we got there, which is kind of a fun side note, is that we presented in all blues and purples. Everything was blues and purples. And we came to find out during that presentation that Scott Kravitz's least favorite fabric is purple. So I thought, oh my gosh, we've really messed up here. So that's been a fun story since then. And with that presentation, some of them knew, but some of them didn't, that Amanda and I have lived in Indiana our whole lives. I've worked out of Indiana all over the country through my whole career, but it was a little unusual, I think, for them to have somebody pitch a line coming from Indiana, you know.
Well, it's true, because you seem so LA to me.
Oh,
you seem so
nice. I like it there, but I'd lots rather live here, truly. Yeah.
And I have to,
had I been the movie star I wanted to be, I'd probably be there. Yeah.
well, there's that.
That's a whole nother podcast.
That's right. And it's a whole nother era of your life. That was another thing that I wanted to bring up, is that 40 years as a designer, that you only start in 2009 to really lean into being an artist on canvas. And now here we are, 2021, and coming out as an artist on textile.
Right.
It's just, I have to say, I have had a lot of conversations with designers who are like, I'm already 38, I'm already 42. Like, when am I going to be able to do it? And I'm like, whoa, we got a few minutes left, right?
Whoa, yeah, that's right. I mean, I think things, I worked so hard at my career, and if people could see the things that I did as an early designer in furniture stores, I got my start in a local furniture store, in 1974, but they were selling at retail $5,000 sofas. In 1974, I was being paid $2 an hour to work in there, but I got to do the window, and I got all, and then I started building my own clientele. I think the younger designers coming up just think they're going to go to design school and they're going to be this big deal, and they're going to get published, and they're going to have a fabric line, and they're going to listen. I've waited a lot of tables, So and it's all paid off, but I also manifested up here that I was going to do something. Yeah.
Yes. Well, and to the defense of the younger designers, I do think that the digital world, the access, the Instagram access, right, it has created an environment that things happen overnight. But this is one of the things that I always go to great lengths to bring out in the conversations with the designers I meet, because when you listen to someone with your experience and your successes and you really go, oh, wait, we are thinking back all the way to 1974. It's like, you know what? It takes a minute, but it takes your inner drive, your inner determination, understanding your mission, vision, values for yourself, your firm, and sticking to it, right?
Yes, yes, working hard and trying to stay motivated and trying to find people and clients that let you do those things, you know. But you know what? We have those in Indiana. We have people like that. And we have very forward-thinking, fashionable people here. People don't think so, unless you've been here. But I have had a wonderful career, and I've lived in 3 counties in Indiana. That's my entire life, just 3 counties. You know, I wanted to go and do other things. I just traveled and did other things. And but my audition for Broadway didn't really happen, but my audition for Kravet did happen, and I've got my name on something. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it. So now they, you know, you go through the process of they say yes, and you work out your deals and get rid of the purple and add looks like green to that blue because God is like, no, ixnay on the purple, right? But now I also know typically how supportive and collaborative the team at the Kravet Design Studio is. So did that have a layer for you, or were you self-sufficient in that, Barry, between yourself and Amanda and Emily, that your process didn't require, or you know, it just wasn't necessary to be collaborative with the design team at Kravet?
Oh, I think that they were very collaborative, and I think they were very supportive. What I could not believe was that Scott Kravet and the people in that area really wanted it to be something that Amanda and I really liked, that we approved of, that we could envision, that we could sell, that it wasn't just like, oh, it has to, our team's really going to take your ideas and format it. Oh no. So when we got down to that part of the whole experience, we had it already in repeat and everything. And Scott Kravet went through it all, and he's a genius about, you know, what sells, and that's a side story I'll talk about selling later if you ask me. But you know, that process with them was wonderful. And I even did get Scott to leave one purple pattern, or lavender. I sent him a lavender tie after the first, you know, audition, as I call it, and he didn't have one. So we do have a lavender shade in the collection. And so that's how, you know, he never does lavender or purple, and he always admits it. But that is a really good example of, he listened to me and Amanda, and I said, just try it. So I'm hoping that it does really well.
We all have to order the purple colorway. Like, that's everybody right here, just go order 5 yards of the purple colorway.
Yes.
You would be a good friend and supporter to Barry if you did that.
That's right.
That's awesome. I love that story.
Yeah.
So now, I know that my brain is reeling because I want to know about the selling process and the making it sellable. I want to know about the inspiration. I want to know about grandma. I want to know about your grandma Goldie. You know, so tell me, they're all places I want to go. Where would you like to go next?
Let's go to Goldie.
Okay, so tell us about Goldie.
Okay. My Goldie is my grandmother. She was what could have been a big deal in a different city or a different region, because she was quite the designer, interior designer. She lived in a house, which I ended up growing up in with my parents, that had red ceilings and plantation fabrics and bullion fringe on the sofas, and fabric covered lampshades, and wool carpet in a leaf pattern design that was a gorgeous shade of green, and she painted tiles on the wall. She was very, very, very artistic. And so growing up with that, she did mold me. I mean, I just learned so much from her, because after we moved into Grandma's house, Grandma moved next door, and I was with her many, many more days rather than my mother, who was also wonderful and very good taste, but Grandma Goldie was my true lifetime inspiration.
Wow.
So when we started naming the fabrics, and you're probably going to ask me about that, my favorite fabric is called Goldie. So if she could see where this is all gone, she would be really thrilled.
Wow. Wow. And which of the patterns that are behind you, is one of them Goldie?
Yes, Goldie is the one that is a kaleidoscope. I'll lean this way. It is behind over this shoulder. And it looks
Okay.
like a kaleidoscope pattern. I pinned it to that display board, running the pattern side to side, but it can be used side to side or up and down. A little side note about Goldie: when I was a child, Goldie loved kaleidoscopes. So she gave me several, and we would sit and look at the kaleidoscopes through, or look at the colors and the patterns and the repeats through the kaleidoscope. So it was not one of Scott's favorite prints. In fact, it wasn't included in the final, the final runner, the runners up, or the final few. And that's not few, final several. And I said to Scott, please, you must put Goldie in
How
there.
would you be here if it wasn't for Goldie? Like,
I know. And I said, for personal reasons and yada yada, I said, I think it's going to sell better than any of the patterns. And I'm not so sure that I haven't been right. It's too soon to see about what is, but it has probably received more attention than the other patterns. So I'm thrilled with that.
there's two big lessons here in what you just described. Is I always talk about, like, we have to listen to our inner voice. This is what I'm always talking about. Like, we know the answer inside of us before when we ask somebody, what should I do? 99% of the time when I'm working with a designer, I'm like, well, what do you think you should do? Because in that is a germ of truth that maybe with the help of somebody else, trusted, respected, that we get to the bottom of, but we all know. And so I love that you listen to your inner voice and you were like, Goldie has to be in there. But I love Scott, just doing that, like, all right, not so sure, but I'm sure about you, so I'm going to do it, right?
And if you're that passionate about it, and we've sold it, already, of course, we're selling all the patterns, but, having that personal attention of the name of a special person to a fabric, I'm very much that way. I'm very inside. But I said, what's different about me than some people who are very inside with their thoughts, I say it out loud. So when you say it out loud, I don't know, it makes it seem real. It's just like Goldie's got to be there rather than just thinking about it. Let's say it. My mother always used to say, you have to ask. It's yes or no. It's not that big a deal. So you might as well ask. Don't hold back.
You don't get it if you don't ask for it. So,
that's right.
And I don't imagine that this happened, but even somebody, you could imagine somebody saying to you, just name a different one, Goldie. And you'd be like, but this is the kaleidoscope. This is the Goldie.
Yeah, it looks like Goldie. And the other patterns remind me of special things about those people. I mean, it's pretty incredible. They represent, truly, it's not just a pattern that represents something. There's a story behind it. There's a feeling of it. There's a fragrance to the pattern. I mean, I can smell the floral print. I mean, it's, yeah.
So to that point, then, each of your, with the inspiration artwork for each of these patterns became that was the first, like the art was that person and that representation. Right. And so then you're taking it to that. Okay. So pick another one or two there, Barry, and talk to us about the story and the name and the inspiration.
Okay. The floral pattern is really pretty. And let me just turn around. I got to see over to this side to see the green that's hanging there.
Yes, and second from the right. So we've got the white and the gray.
I'm going to hold this closer to you. This is the smaller pattern of that lavender color that Scott let me do. Okay, this pattern, this floral piece, I think it's in 4 or 5 colors. There's an aqua, a gray shade. Behind me, I should say, by the way, LuAnn, is all the green blue story. But some of these come in grays and neutrals as well. But this pattern I named Manders, Manders. I tried to name it Amanda, but that name had already been taken within the cravat line. So, well, her nickname was Manders. So a lot of her friends called her Manders. So that's why that fabric is named that way.
I like that better. I like that better. I like that better.
Yeah, it's very sweet and cute. And that the florals, Amanda as a little girl always loved flowers, as did my Goldie. And so it was just natural that that floral print be called Manders. And then let's see, yes, for another one, I would probably talk about Shirley. The other pattern behind me, it would be the one that has a diamond, let's see, a diamond print there. It's sort of right up in here. It's a diamond.
So it's from the left, it's 1, 2, 3, 4th hanger from the left, right? I mean, from the right, from the right.
From the right.
Okay.
And Shirley was a real important person to me. A big difference in age, but she was probably my first large Indianapolis design client. And she was so insightful, and she was so deep, and she was beautiful, and she was gentle and interested in people. And we just formed this beautiful friendship until she passed away. And I wanted to name something for her. Shirley had diamonds, and she had pretty beautiful diamond rings. So that is a diamond, that pattern. And she would be so pleased. And she was also one of those people who said, Barry, you can do anything you want to do. She was kind of like a mother. She said, there's no telling where you're going to go with your talent. She said, just use it. So she was, inspirational, and just always supported me. And she knew about this fabric collection. I shared this story with her many years ago. And I said, someday I want to do a fabric collection. Now, I did not know it was going to come from art. I really didn't. The art came, and then the fabric came. But she knew I loved art, and she said, you got to keep painting. You got to keep painting. I hadn't painted since high school. So until 2009, during the recession, I had not painted since high school.
Wow.
So that just sort of happened along the way too. But Shirley, the pattern Shirley, and it's Sherlee, as unique as she was.
That's such a great story. I mean, it's so fun to learn about how somebody really was an inspiration to you. And I'm sure all the designers listening, if you're lucky, there's somebody in your life too that you can sit and think, you know what, sometimes it's just that little shot in the arm, that little you can do it comes right at the right time when you need it, right? And it's just that belief in you that something is good and something in you is meant to come out.
That's
so
right.
And it's interesting too.
I'm sorry. I just want to add to that real quickly. I have 3 art teachers that, from my 1st grade art teacher, my 6th grade art teacher, and a high school art teacher. I can see them, I could talk to them. In fact, I still talk to one, my high school art teacher. Those 3 art teachers fed me to do the art. It didn't happen in 19 whatever. It happened starting in 2009, but I can still reflect on the direction and Barry, you're really good. You should do this. I mean, it all came back when I started painting. So yeah, influencers, we talk about influencers, on social media. They don't have any idea. It's different than influencing people with their dreams.
Right. Exactly. True one-on-one inspiration and touching someone's life and helping them tap into the best part of themselves.
That's
right. That's an influence. That's it. That's right. And it's interesting because here, I just made an incorrect assumption that, the art came and then all of a sudden you thought, oh, what's my opportunity? How can I parlay this? What's my next passion? Oh, let's make the art into fabric. Oh, let's pitch Cravat. But for you to say that you've always had this dream inside to create fabric, but it wasn't ready yet. And that's the other message again, right? It's the other message is to let the things cook and marinate. And when the time is right, you'll know it. Just because you had the idea, the inspiration, however many years ago to do the textiles, it wasn't the time. And the time becomes the moment when it's now has to come out. And now you have all of it formed, right? I call it synchronicities. It's like, oh, I've always wanted to do that. And then that happened. And then that idea happened. And then I'm going on a trip with Cravat and I'm going to corner Steve on a bus. Like, boom, it's all going to happen now.
And then it all happened rather quickly once it all started rolling. But there was a lot of time before, but it was all preparation. And
yes.
when I look back at it all, it wouldn't have been right back then.
That's the thing, right? When you're meant
you have to accept that until the time is right and somebody's deciding it, we don't always get to decide our timing, is my point. Right. And just roll with it. Right. And yeah.
And you're always, I say on the show, we're always preparing to quote unquote, be lucky. Just keep doing, stay in your lane, do your superpower, keep doing your best every day. And then boom, 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 everything lines up and the opportunity is there. That's the moment that you got to make that like conversation on the bus though. You can't be afraid of that moment, right? No. You have to be ready and go for it. Right. So you mentioned that it happened fairly quickly. I feel like in the last several Cravat partners that I've had the opportunity to interview and speak with, it seems like it's like an 18-month to 2-year from like, okay, we're from your pitch meeting, like the formal pitch meeting with all of your art and your fabric and your props there, to it being on the street and available for retailers and designers like myself and the ones listening to buy. Is that the right timeline?
That's about right. I think I think that Cravat would have liked to get it out there a little bit sooner, but with COVID, I mean, things did slow down. It slowed that process down a little bit, and then but I think you hit it on the nail. Yes.
Okay. And then in the process of working with the studio, now you're coming with the idea for, like you said, the repeats and the colorways and stuff like that. But what about the actual fabrics, the ground fabrics that it's going to be printed on? Was that mostly advice coming from Scott and the design team? Did you have a lot to think and say about that?
I had a lot to think and say, but it was after their expertise. Nobody knows fabric better than Scott Cravat. Right. So I was anxious to see what he would suggest for the grounds, of the collection. And there were several. And this is again, just a great example. He held them in his hands and he said, what do you think of this one? What do you think of this one? And I said, well, I think this one might sell better, but I like the feel of this. So is there something? He was so open, and then he came, and then they shipped us out some other grounds and he would say constantly, I want you to like it. Mm-hmm. I want you to be happy with it. This is your baby. I want you, So, but I cared about, of course, two things the most: the way it looked and the way it would sell.
Yes.
So I relied on his team and Scott to select the fabric, and I'm thrilled with them. They're beautiful. They're beautiful.
And then talk to us about the selling of it, because there has to be conversations about, were you involved in the conversations about what price point would they be introduced at and, blah, blah, blah. So tell us about that selling and what you said before you wanted to talk about.
Okay. It was important to me to be in, I hate to use the word category, but to be in a place where lots of people would be drawn to it and lots of designers would be able to sell it. I mean, we all love gorgeous things, but not all of us can sell a $500 at net cost velvet. I mean, so it was important to me to be able to, for people to be able to use it and sell it. And I wasn't too involved in the pricing, but I'm sure happy on where it ended up.
Yeah.
You know, I think
Line,
it's a good, affordable range of fabrics, and along with the patterns, there are solids and textures that have been paired to work with the collection, so you can really get a great look all the way across the board, and they're all tangible in price. Yes.
Yeah, I know that the line is at the retail point anywhere from 55 to like 150 per yard. And, you know, having sold window treatments for 40 years, you're exactly right. That's the wheelhouse where 70% of our clients are going to afford and buy. You know what I mean? We all, if you're super only luxury, then fine. Maybe you have 70% that would buy 150 and above, right? But my experience and talking with designers around the country and so forth, and my own experience is that that's a wheelhouse and a price point that I can open that book in front of almost any client.
Yes.
Right.
You don't have to justify it. It looks good. It's got a great hand. It hangs beautifully. It's multi-purpose. It's, people read it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, love it. So it's in the showrooms now, and of course it's online. So any designers that are with us today, if they have a showroom near them, if they're near the Seattle Design Center, they can go and see it in person. But if they're from parts of the country that maybe they don't have a showroom near, we can go onto the Kravet website and see everything, right? And it's for sale. We can start to specify it.
You can order it as soon as we're finished.
And we want to order Goldie. Does Goldie come in the lavender colorway?
No, it doesn't. Goldie comes, Manders comes in lavender.
Okay,
So,
okay.
Yeah.
How many patterns in total in the collection, and how many colorways, Barry?
Oh, wow. I think there are 5 colorways. Almost every pattern comes in several colors, well, at least 3. Boy, that's a good question. I haven't answered that for a while. I think there are around 30 SKUs,
Wow.
including the coordinating solids and textures.
Perfect.
It's a nice sized line.
Yeah. Now, is it a line that will be in its own book, Barry, or is it going to be interspersed into our Kravet books?
It's not. They might intersperse some of the patterns, but it's not going to be in a book of its own. No, it's not booked.
So we have to go to the website or the showroom.
You go to the website, and it shows so pretty on the website. These patterns do, and the colors are very good. Of course, then they'll send memos.
I was just going to say, we could order a memo of everything to have in our wheelhouse as we present and pull from our studio.
But all of the showrooms have large wing wall samples to see in the showrooms. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Awesome. I love it. And then, someone is, Elliot is reminding me the art is available on Curated Kravet, right?
Yeah,
like the actual art that, now, is it just the inspiration art or all of any random number? Okay.
No. I worked with Will on this. Yes. And to select, he went through all of my art and selected, I think we ended up with 22 pieces, original pieces that he thought would be very good to use in the curated line and do them as giclées. So Kravet has control of those pieces, which is great. And the giclée process, they're wonderful. I mean, the quality is great. They come in different sizes per painting and different frame selections. So it makes it very easy for the designer to do that. I think designers maybe don't concentrate enough on art. Mm-hmm. I think they think, oh, that's so much to the client, so personal. I think you can make nice money selling art along with your design project. Excuse me. So like I said, there are, I think, 20 pieces on there, and they're online as well. And do
you find that you use the Curated Kravet site a lot? I just think it's such an amazing resource because it really is almost impossible to shop it, right? Like if you
Oh,
present something to a client, they can't be like, I found this in 16,000 places on the internet. It's mostly curated
yes,
pieces, you know?
yes, it's personalized, you know, it's personally been collected, and you don't see it at your neighbor's house over coffee. No, and it's a wonderful opportunity for designers to use that resource. I mean, Will does a wonderful job with how he selects pieces for that, and we use it a lot. I mean, there are pillows of my fabric collection, and they put it on pillows too, and they are there on the curated site as well.
That's good. I mean, just like literally your experience as accomplished seasoned designer. I tell designers all the time, I think curated cravat is a source that they cannot forget about. But I'm not a designer. Like I just see all the benefits from a business perspective. But for you and Amanda working in your design firm, it's a tremendous resource, right?
Oh, it's tremendous. The whole cravat, the approach that they've taken, they've been so smart that they make themselves so available with their showroom setups, with the with the curated, with the vast variety of fabrics. I mean, it's just, it's the easiest company to shop as a designer, as a professional. If they don't have it within themselves, I mean, it's, you know, I don't know where you're going to find it.
And I remember one of the other great features of curated cravat. I remember Sandra Funk from House of Funk saying it to me one time. She said, what I love is often, look, like the designers, they do the reveal install, no question. That's a valuable business model to do. She said, but not every project, even when you're a luxury designer, is a multiple five or six figure project and you're having this reveal. Sometimes it's a repeat client that they ask you to refresh a room, right? Or something like that. And she said, and in that situation, there are times when I might want to order a piece, whatever, it's a piece of art, it's a piece of, a vase, it's a whatever it is, and have it drop shipped to the client. And she said, and Curated Cravat is one of the only companies that I can do that with because it doesn't come packaged like, it comes beautifully presented. And she said, and I say to my client, leave it there. I'm going to send my guy to open it and hang it or whatever it is. But she says, clients, they want to open it. And she said, and I feel proud when that package arrives and they're unwrapping it. I don't feel like, oh my God, that was $5,000 and it looks like it came from a dime store because it was just packaged to ship, right?
Right. Well, it's back to the thing where beautiful food tastes better if it's presented well. Furniture, accessories, anything for the home, if it's presented in a good way, it sells itself. So
Exactly.
Cravat, I would say that about Cravat. They have always presented themselves with the utmost of good taste.
Yeah, definitely.
In what they offer.
100% agree. We have about 7 or 8 minutes left. And I just wonder if anybody has any specific questions for Barry about anything, about the business side of launching a fabric line, about the inspiration side, about the production side, about his experience 40 years as an interior designer, or how about your experience with succession planning and having your daughter come into the firm? Like, that sounds great. I know it's great, but there's moments, right, where you're like, yikes, she's like has new ideas. My son-in-law is coming into our business the last couple of years.
Nice.
And I swear to goodness, like for the first 2 years, he must have said to me 10 times, we've got to go completely paperless. I'm like, you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. And then just yesterday, I said to him, I'm like, I know it's coming, but it's not now.
Yeah, I mean, Amanda's just been great. We worked together previous to the last reset in 2008. She was part of my business then she took a hiatus, and during the recession is that I don't want to own any business. So she went into fashion for 5 or 6 years. Then when things got better in the world around us, I said, either you come back or I've got to hire somebody else. So she is so seasoned, and she went to the merchandise mart when she was 5 years old. she would go with me to Chicago, and she'd love the mark. She'd love the experience. So yeah, there are moments like you are going to have with your son-in-law. However, it's all good. It brings out the good stuff. We argue,
Yeah.
you know, and I usually win. Haha.
Of course.
But you know, it's all good.
We think we win. We think we win.
Yeah, they let us think we win.
That's it. That's it. It's funny because I've told the story a lot. My daughter, she's 32 now, and Kravet was the very first fabric company that we opened an account with when we started our business in 1982, and we started, you know, vertical blinds, mini blinds, and Verisol pleated shades, if you remember those, Barry.
Mhm.
Then, you know, I'm selling, and people are like, you know, could I have a valance to go over it? I'm like, I don't know. I don't have any balances. What's a balance? Like, I don't know how to do a balance. I know how to make a blind, right? And so I remember, I don't know how I came across Kravet, but I did. And I called, and Kenny Potos, who's my rep to this day, is the one who called me back. And we had a very nice conversation. I was so green and had no idea what I was talking about. And he was so patient with me and had such a nice conversation. And he invited me, he said, you should go and see our showroom. And so I did. And then, you know, 5-6 years later, my daughter comes along, and, you know, I remember bringing her to the Kravet showroom literally at 2 years old, and just sitting her in the wings. And I remember, I'll never forget the first day I walked through the Kravet showroom in New York City with her. You know, the people that run the showroom, they're still there today. We were, you know, looked at me like, lady, are you crazy coming in here with that 2-year-old? Right? But they didn't say anything to me. And I knew my kid, like, you know, like I have a 2-year-old grandson now. There, I can barely take him to my own living room, let alone the Kravet showroom, right? I knew she'd be good. And it was a tradition at least twice a year on her school breaks that I would take her with me all the way until she was like in high school. And, you know, all the Kravet people were always so welcoming. And, you know, it's a very family atmosphere.
It's wonderful. And the people that they have collections with are all pretty special too. I mean, there's everybody is just very kind, very sincere, have the same goals, and it's nice to be involved and be a part of, you know, me right up there with some of those other people. It's a dream come true, and I'm very grateful to Kravet for it.
Well, I'm sure they're proud to be up there next to you too.
Oh,
There's no question, no question.
thank you.
So I don't think anybody has any questions. That's crazy pants. I could do it just for another hour asking you questions.
LuAnn, maybe we should ask everybody to take themselves off of mute if they have a question.
Okay,
Might be easier.
fine. Whatever you
If
guys.
anybody has any question to Barry or LuAnn. I see a thank you from Scott.
Well,
I think LuAnn, you are just so good at interviewing people that there are no questions because you asked them all.
That's
And Barry,
right.
you're
She
very
got me to
thorough.
talk like I was on Oprah or something. I mean, it's unbelievable. So yeah, she knows how to ask questions and make you think and respond. Right.
well, I love to get to the real stuff. The thing, you know, it's like we want to know the real stuff. You know?
Right. Right.
This was great. Thank you. Michelle Slovak here. Barry, are you working on your next collection?
Well, of course, in my mind, it's all done, honey. It's all, I'm just putting it on paper. No, I've already mentioned to my friend Steve Prada, and I've mentioned to Scott that I have some things to show them. So I'm hopeful for that. We'll see how this goes. And I'm very hopeful for that. Yes.
Great. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I'm in New York, so I will go see it at the D&D or the New York Design Center.
Well, I hope you will. Hope you will.
That's my
Thank
home
you.
showroom too. Shannon Christensen is saying this motivated her to head over to the Kravet showroom.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah.
Ask them for purple.
Yeah.
Ask them for.
Buy Goldie and buy Manders in purple.
Yes, yes.
Barry, couldn't we just like drive this purple sales today? Wouldn't that be
Oh,
hysterical?
Absolutely. You know, it is true. I told Scott this. I said, we do a lot of it here.
We should all at least just order a purple memo in Manders today.
Oh, I know. Wouldn't that be funny? Or if you know Scott Kravitz, send him a piece of paper that's purple. No note. He'll know where it came from, because I don't think he's probably watching.
I might have to do that. I
It
might
would
have
be
to
so
do that.
fun, really. Yes.
Oh, and Scott Smith is saying your collection would translate well to outdoor. Great observation.
Yes, I have a whole, and actually some drawings of outdoor fabrics that would be pretty, and they would melt right into this first collection easily.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely could see that with the Mabley Handler furniture and then your
Yes.
outdoor
We sell
fabric.
their furniture. We've sold a lot of their furniture, and we like them so much. It's great looking furniture.
Yeah, they and they're a beautiful couple too.
Yeah.
They really are beautiful people. I haven't met a single Kravet collaborator that wasn't a genuinely beautiful person.
Yeah.
You know, like, because I do the off-air conversation, you know, we can do all nicey nice here, but literally every one of you to a person. And I think that comes because Kravet makes the decision first to partner with the person, you know, and then the opportunity
I
second.
think that's foremost with them, which you really have to admire them for doing that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. So, thank you, Angela, for the comments on the podcast. You guys know that Kravet was the one who sponsored the podcast before I even had an episode recorded. They believed in it. And the exact line that they said to me was, one of our strict missions is to support the interior designer in running their business. And if this podcast is going to be a part of that, then we want to be a part of the podcast.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then they asked me for a sample of it, and then I had to hurry up and make one.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I could get that to you. Give me a week.
Yeah. I'll get right back to you.
I was like, I got to get it back from the editor. I'll get, give me a week.
Yeah.
Hey, Elliot.
Well, LuAnn and Barry, thank you so much. Extremely inspiring, Barry, the conversation.
Thank you.
And I wish those fabrics could be a little bit closer, because I got Goldie behind me here. But everybody, please come into the showroom and see them. They are absolutely beautiful. And your artwork, everybody should go to Curated. It is just beautiful artwork. And there are some videos online of you actually, I think it's showing you paint. So
Probably so.
that is very inspiring as well. So
Yeah.
again, everybody, thank you for joining the presentation today. If anybody has any questions, you can ask it quickly. If not, I know there's another presentation after ours. And thank you for joining us today for Seattle Market. And again, I'm not going to promise you, but I'm going to tell you, hopefully this is our last virtual podcast, and we will do something live and in person come fall. So everybody be safe, and thank you all for joining.
Thank you. Thanks, Barry. It was such a fun talk. Thank you.
I knew it would be fun. Thank you so much,
Thank
Glenn.
you, Elliot. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Well, bye.